are we on that journey? How much more is to come, do you think, and how quickly? We had Abramovich and such like this week. Are
Well,
they
that
going?
was a big moment. It was a
Mm,
very big moment to get Abramovich because that was really, he's very much the person that everybody thinks to about being the kind of oligarch that has the greatest interest in the UK. And I think that that was something that was quite unexpected at the time because there have been so many legal wranglings over who could and couldn't be sanctioned. And even when the government sort of made it easier to sanction these oligarchs and talked about trying to emulate what was being done in the EU, it wasn't necessarily that this was going to follow. So they have made progress. We saw yesterday that there was another round of sanctions, this time against the Russian MPs that had backed the Kremlin in their actions in the Ukraine and the Crimea. But there are still, and it is fair to say, there are still a number of oligarchs with a significant presence in London who are on both the EU sanctions list and also on the US sanctions list that haven't been sanctioned, who many people I've spoken to, intelligence and
mm.
security services, are really scratching their heads and thinking, why have these individuals not been sanctioned?
Oh, and there's not much political dissent around this. There isn't a sort of a notable pro oligarch lobby in the Commons. So why isn't this happening?
Well, I think that the Conservative Party have got themselves into a difficult position to a certain extent because some of these oligarchs are linked,
Mm,
and I say linked in a loose way, to donors that have given money to the party. And so there is certainly a question, really, as to the identities of some of the oligarchs that haven't been sanctioned and their links to the Conservative Party and why
mm.
that may be a factor. But I think that you'll continue to see pressure here. This war is not going to end anytime soon. It's very clear that even if Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, falls imminently, or any of the other cities, the resistance fighting within is going to go on for some time. And I think President Zelensky has been very clear with MPs that that's certainly the determination of the Ukrainian people, that happens. And so the noose has got to get tighter and tighter around the Kremlin in order to try and bring this to some kind of conclusion ultimately. And the only way at the moment that we seem to be able to do that is by basically squeezing their
Mm.
economy. So I think you'll see more happening on this, over the course of the next weeks, months, days, and it will kind of ebb and flow as the pressures
Yeah.
sort of ebb and flow on the kind of ministers to act, given what's going on the ground.
Sure. Let's talk about refugees. Not a good week for the UK government, it seemed, on that front. There's a headline in the Times today: "I would take in a Ukrainian refugee," says Keir Starmer. And you wonder if other politicians are going to follow suit. You had Emmanuel Macron, I think, this morning as well, hitting out in the UK government, saying that they're failing to live up to its grand statements on helping Ukrainian refugees. What, in your perspective, has been going on here? Has this been chaos, or is there a sort of unspoken thing going on in government that goes, hang on, we just don't want to take people because we think the public won't like it?
No, I don't think it's that. And actually, if you look at the polling, the indications are that pretty much the public very much want to welcome
Mm,
Ukrainians into the country. The issue, as I see it, and something that's been raised with us time and time again, and I think you'll be able to read a bit more about this in the Sunday Times tomorrow, is that there have been genuine security concerns raised about some of the individuals that are trying to seek refugee here, particularly after Lukashenko
hmm.
basically released a lot of sort of dangerous terrorists who are now thought to be sort of marauding around the kind of Eastern Bloc, and there are very much concerns about them ending up here. And so I think there has been a genuine desire to reflect those concerns. I think they've been raised directly with the Home Secretary by the intelligence services, while at the same time we do tend to have issues when it comes to refugees, in that if you think about the Afghanistan situation, we still have refugees in hotels.
Mm.
There seems to be not much movement there in terms of the resettlement scheme progressing desperately quickly. It is massively bureaucratic. We're not very good at doing things very quickly. If you look at what the EU have done, I mean, basically what they've done is they've scrapped all the visa system. So they've said
Yeah.
just come. But actually, it's not just as simple as doing that. Once they come, you have to be there to support them and provide them with jobs, accommodation, with benefits, all of those things. And that can take time to do. We're not like the EU in that we are an island. It's, not quite as easy in terms of, crossing borders, etc., etc. And so I think there have been genuine obstacles in the way. I've spoken to somebody very senior in the Home Office fairly recently, UK, and they're furious at this kind of desire really to paint this as us being, sort of little Britonners and, desperate to kind of keep foreigners from our shores. They say that's simply not the case. There just have been a number of really serious logistical issues to get over.
But still, I mean, when you've got like 1 million people in Poland, they kind of have these logistical issues as well, right? And
They do. I mean, the other thing I would point to, and you'll see that there is going to be an interview with Melinda Simmons, who is the UK's ambassador to the Ukraine in this Sunday's newspaper. And she says, she talks very movingly about the refugee crisis on the ground and what she herself has seen, having trodden in the same footpath. And what she says is, a lot of these people don't want to come to the UK. They don't really want to be away from the Ukraine. They want to stay as close as they possibly can do to their homes in the hope that one day they'll return. So they are, there have been logistical problems on the ground there, but we do also need to do much more to support those neighbouring countries to make sure that they are, able to cope with the influx, as well as providing a safe route for people to come to the UK if they want to.
let's talk about some of the impacts that are going to be felt in Britain of this conflict generally, particularly the cost of living crisis, spiralling energy costs and so on. Conservative MPs have been demanding action from Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, ahead of his spring economic statement on the 23rd of March. What are you hearing he might do, if anything?
Very much being briefed that it's going to be policy light. And if you think about it, these statements, this isn't a budget. Some time ago, they flipped the budget. So the budget is now in the autumn. And so normally this is an opportunity for Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, to come here and talk about the forecast, the OBR forecast, talking about what's coming. And it's not usually an opportunity for him to start pulling levers and new mechanisms. And my understanding is that at the moment, they're very much looking at what's going on, but they feel that they've done quite a lot already to cushion us from the energy bill situation, given the price cap increase. And actually, they're looking ahead more to the autumn about the levers and mechanisms that they might be able to pull to alleviate yet further rises then, given that actually, since we started having those debates around heating bills, the situation has deteriorated given what's happened in the Ukraine. There has been lots of speculation that the Chancellor is looking at fuel duty, which, would be a relief to lots of motorists, given the fact that we're all really feeling the pain at the pumps now. However, doing something even relatively minor, taking a penny off the cost of a litre of price of fuel, is extremely expensive, billions of pounds to the Treasury, and actually isn't going to benefit motorists desperately, given that it's a couple of quid every time you basically fill up. So I think that they're looking at doing bigger interventions in the autumn rather than looking at doing it now. And of course, the big one that they're trying to do is to try and switch our energy supply away from Russia and towards potentially the Middle East. And that could potentially help us.
So you've got Boris Johnson going to Saudi Arabia to get them to produce more oil. Is that likely to be successful? They've been quite resistant in the Middle East to producing more oil.
It's very difficult to say. And when I spoke to Number 10 earlier today, they were saying it was 50-50 whether that trip would actually go ahead.
Right.
They're quite confident that those discussions will happen within the next month. And of course, there was already a trip planned earlier in the year, which didn't happen to Saudi. But look, MBS and Saudi is a difficult customer. I mean, given the way in which they behaved with the UN Security Council vote, where they abstained, they are not necessarily Western facing. They are also, known to be allied to the Russian state as well. If they were to do something with the West, it would send a message to Putin that wouldn't necessarily benefit them particularly in that way. But it is something that we've got to try. We need to try and switch our energy supply away from Russia. They're the obvious place to go. It's a difficult conversation to have, given some of the human rights abuses and the murder of the journalist Khashoggi, given all of those debates around that. But at the same time, we know Biden tried to call MBS recently.
And
that
was rebuffed,
receptive. And we know that Boris Johnson does have a good relationship with MBS and that they text regularly. So I think, given the myriad of problems that are sort of facing us at the moment, given the potential for an ongoing and long-standing conflict in the Ukraine, there is a sense within government now that we've got to pull every lever at our disposal, and this is one of them that we may need to explore.
Well, we shall see. Thank you very much, Caroline. You can read more from Caroline Wheeler, of course, in tomorrow's Sunday Times. And if you want to get the latest award-winning analysis and commentary, today's Times is for you. Pick up today's...